Harris is a spiritual teacher, musician and painter living in Colorado, USA. He discovered his intuitive talents when he was a child. Lee's journey as a channeler began in 1998. Suddenly, he became aware of the voice of a being called Zachary, who is part of a greater collective of 88 spirit guides. Lee, who was a spiritual and self-development explorer at that time, had almost daily conversations with Zachary and the collective since then. In the year 2006, Lee began to work as a professional channeler.
Funnily enough, before I started channeling, I started hearing music about a year before, and that was the first time I, as a composer, had appeared. I'd always been into music, but suddenly I would hear these whole songs. So that was a strange experience because I didn't know that was how it happened for other people. Now I do know it happens a lot for other people, but I had maybe a mental idea of what a songwriter was. So to hear all these things coming into my head, that was very strong. And then around the same time, I was around 21, I was beginning to become aware I had intuitions about people that were beyond just character assessment with the mind, that you might go, oh, well, this person's a bit busy, or I started to have intuitions. And when I was at drama school, it was an amazing course. It was holistic. They opened us to a lot of things. And one of the things was Alexander Technique. And in one of the Alexander Technique lessons, I had the most bizarre experience where I became a wolf. And it was something that seems to have been induced by what we were doing. And there was, a bit like with channeling, there was a consciousness that once I'd got into this state in this lesson, I could feel like all my senses were heightened, and we were allowed to move in a way that wasn't normal to our normal character pattern. So I guess they were expecting us to move differently as human beings. But I became a wolf, but I felt very shy of this. And I had a consciousness that I didn't want to look too odd in the room, because I was having this weird inner body experience where it was like my ears, my eyes, everything was amplified. And I left the lesson and managed to stay in that state for about 2 or 3 more hours. And then I consciously left it. But there was always it wasn't complete trance. There was always a twofold experience. I knew that me, the human, could break this, but I didn't understand how this had become. I was kind of suffering as a kid, you know, internally, and dealing with the usual kind of awakening feelings that people have, alienation. Why am I so different to everyone else? And I just want to be with everyone else and the same as everyone else, and that whole dance. And then I'd have these moments on stage where I would feel electric, because I would be someone and something else, and I would feel this electric current running through me, and it would leave an effect on the people who had just had it. So obviously you have your kid's ego, and you know, I remember thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great to be a famous actor as a kid? And of course now I know that if that were my reality, of course it wouldn't. It would have all the challenges that life brings you, but as a kid, you know, I could have those fantasy dreams, and there was definitely a big need for me to escape. I think I was 9.5 or 10 years old when my mom took me to Weight Watchers, which is so funny. I mean, you know, not many 10-year-olds are being taken to Weight Watchers. I will say one thing about myself, it's that I commit to things, and I committed to junk food. So yeah, I used to eat like 5 chocolate bars in one go as my way of soothing myself. So of course for 15 minutes, those 5 Mars bars make you feel good, because you've got the sugar rush and you've got the psychological, and then of course 15 minutes later you don't feel good. And you certainly don't feel good walking around the playground and having other kids, I was going to say, call you names about your weight. But for me, what I also didn't realize was I could kind of read people's minds, but I didn't know I could. So it was the horror of walking into a room and you feel other people's revulsion even if they're not expressing it. So I actually felt this dualistic experience when I was a kid of, there were things I could be celebrated for, and then there were many ways I felt inadequate or excluded from the group because of what I had created with my size. And that kind of went on through, I think I lost the weight when I was about 16 years old. So I was 15 and a half stone at the age of 15 and a half. And then I lost 4 stone. And you know, a stone is 14 pounds. So I lost 60 pounds between the ages of 16 and 18, and I was shorter and smaller framed. So yeah, I was carrying a few pounds. I was not picked first for the football team, let's put it. I was the guy at the end, and you know, you'd kind of hear them muttering under their breath, oh, let's put him in goal, you know, and you'd hear it and you just have to stand there and listen. So yeah, secondary school for me was a kind of hell. I was aware that I was not attracted to girls and that you were supposed to be. So that was challenging too, because at that time, I'm 37 now, 38 soon, and you know, we're talking 30 odd years ago when I was realizing that at a very young age, like 7 or 6. And so you suddenly realize that you're going against what everybody tells you you're supposed to be, and that it's not only that you hear judgment about that. So it was kind of like I couldn't win. It's like I had the weight thing going on, I had the sexuality difference. I was a little unusual as a kid. So yeah, I survived childhood. And you know, I had a sweet family and some lovely friends, and I had some great outlets that kind of kept me going, but it was very rough for me. There's so much suffering on the planet, and personal suffering, and people going through hell in themselves. And I went through a lot of that early. And actually have managed to liberate myself as I got older. So it gives me compassion and understanding for someone who I'm working with, who comes to me and goes, I'm dealing with bulimia, and I'm in hell, and I'm depressed, and I can go, oh, I had bulimia for 1.5 years at the end of losing the weight. And so I think it gave me a compassion for the suffering that you can have as a human being who hasn't yet found their expansion in life.
'Cause life is dark someday. But sunlight will break through. There's no such thing as failure, and we all love you.
The current perception and understanding of channeling is, when you are in channeling mode, channeling another energy or an entity, you are either hearing or becoming a voice that's coming from spirit. Now, some people channel alien presences, and we don't tend to call alien spirit, but you know, they are. You know, it's like anything in the universe is spirit. It's just taking different forms. Some channel angels. So some people get very specific about it, and they go, I'm now channeling Archangel Michael, and he's giving me this message, and I'm using my voice to be Archangel Michael, or my body. So channeling, really, if you break it down to pure energy, for me it's directional energy. So a good actor is channeling. Meryl Streep is channeling. She's not sitting there pulling some strings and thinking about her mind, oh, well, now I must pretend. She becomes that person, and that was how I experienced acting. And so it runs through your body, and you take on the identity of something else, and you let that current go through you. So you release your nervous system to a character. Channeling is the same. You release your nervous system and your energy to go to a higher dimensional voice. I'm on the tube and I'm sorting through things in my own head, you know, and probably being very self-judgmental. And suddenly, I'm asking a question about, you know, to give you an example, it would have been something like, you know, oh, well, why should I do that? And what should I do about this? Da, 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 da. And all of a sudden, from kind of a different hemisphere of my brain, which I'm not used to hearing from, suddenly in came, well, you'll do that because it will develop you. And I just had that moment where you kind of catch something, and then I kind of identified this voice had come, and I started talking to it more. And of course, my mind is now racing. Am I going mad? Am I making this up? Because, you know, of course it's a fantasy to think you can talk to a spirit, and everyone wants to meet their spirit guide that I knew, the few spiritual friends I had. So am I making this up? But then the breakthrough for me came when I shared with a few close spiritual friends what was going on. And they started talking to Zachary through me. And I would not channel exactly then, but I would repeat what I heard. They would ask me a question, I would hear blah, 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 and I would be like a secretary just repeating what I heard. It took me another year or so to allow it to come down into my body more and let it channel through, because I was a little nervous. It was 2007 and I'd been working publicly as a channeler for just over a year. I'd been working for 3 years, but the first 2 years I was privately doing readings and sessions, and it was always Zachary. And all of a sudden, I don't know what prompted it, but rather than it just being Zachary, it was like suddenly I became this revolve. The end of this whole process where this revolve went on and it kind of, this team got exposed, was Zaphariah and Zayadora, so the two female energies. And this was explained to us in human terms, and it was explained that, you know, if you see Zachary as the male figure, which he is, he's a male energy predominantly in terms of what he runs. Zayadora would be the equivalent of his wife, and she has a very motherly heart, grandmother wisdom. I mean, strong as hell. Like the times I've channeled Zayadora, it's so peaceful, but really powerful in the room. And then Zaphariah was a bit more off the wall, kind of a bit more like the zany mystic, and it was explained that Zaphariah is, you'd kind of see her as Zayadora's sister. That Zayadora and Zaphariah, I was supposed to start channeling them publicly, and that's why I was horrified, because I thought, I'm a man, who the hell do I think I am, going out there claiming I'm channeling female energies. I just about started to get slightly comfortable with the idea that I was out there as a channeler in the first place, and had to explain it to family, old work colleagues who, you know, you'd meet them and they'd be like, what the hell happened to Lee? You know, and I got it. I understood. I could understand how it would be weird for them. But it was amazing. Around that time, I started to really acknowledge my feminine energy. And I'd had it very strongly in me as a kid, but as you can imagine, you know, being a boy, and, you know, boys when they were raised, when I was raised, it was like, be a man and blah, 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 you know, all that kind of really helpful stuff. And so that, you know, I'd kind of suffocated or pushed down my feminine. And in a way, this was me having to own it by transmitting this energy. And now I personally feel very balanced in my male and female at an all new level. And so it's interesting to me how those journeys tandem, but also the idea that as a channeler, you're serving something on behalf of the world as much as yourself. And when there comes a point that that's no longer relevant, it will change. Well, I actually wouldn't say that there is a separation between male and female. I would say that we on Earth have really confined and limited our energetic possibilities. And you have to be careful with words, because I've just said we on Earth, and I know that some of your viewers are sitting there kind of going, oh yeah, I have, and they're seeing it as a personal thing. Don't do that, because it's not you. We were all born into an energy template, and it's a collective energy template, and we are liberating it. And there was good reason to separate the male and the female in society terms, and to say a man is this and a woman is this, because if you create separation between man and woman, you are forever creating a separated, divided society, because it was a man and a woman that made all of us appear on this planet. All of us became conceived through male and female unified energy. Yet we're then born into a society that wants to separate them, subjugate the women, empower the men, but actually you're not really empowering the men, because the men were given very hard boxes they had to live in. You must achieve, you must be the breadwinner. That's stressful for men. And I think that the time that we're in, a lot of this is changing. And so I think the separation has served, but the separation is breaking down, because if you reunify the male and female in yourself, in some ways, that's the greatest overcoming on a human level that you can go through before you step into awakening, because that's one of the cleverest traps that has been laid down for us. Oh, well, you're a man, you're a woman. You're both human, but you can never be this thing and you can never be this thing. And I'm like, well, you know what, you can. And I remember a ton of past lives as a woman, and I remember a ton of past lives as a man, and we've been around the Ferris wheel, and in this lifetime what we're trying to do is bring more unification and less separation and segregation. For me, if you can find the male and the female in yourself, whatever that means to you and however that shows up, suddenly you have this great inner marriage. Think of it as having your own inner parents and your own inner husband and wife. And if you think of a great parenting team or a great husband and wife team, they're stronger than when they're individual. So once you have your male and female in you, operating in you, flow is going to happen in your life. And flow can mean many different things, but for example, your life might just start to get easier.